We're going to keep talking about guidelines today, and if you've already seen how to make guidelines on a poster, then you've got a little edge. The guidelines, when they're large, are much easier to use, but when you start to get smaller, like in a comic strip, then you're going to need a smaller tool, a sharper pencil, and a little bit more planning. So what I'm going to do is on my paper, I'm going to go ahead and lay out the panels for my comic strip. And I've already got a couple cut to size here. You can measure it and use the straight edge, but I like to use pre-cut rectangles to make my panels because I think that just makes it a little bit easier to get the gutter spacing. And the gutters are the spaces in between the panels or in between the guidelines. I've got that one drawn in lightly. Can go ahead and get the spacing right on the other side. Oh, good, yeah. Hold it down, gently trace around it. Now, I'm just doing 3 squares, beginning, middle, and end. And depending on the topic of your comic strip, you may need more panels, you may need less panels, you may need a larger piece of paper. But if you have several rectangles about the same width, you can arrange them. I could very easily make this into 4 panels by adding a gutter here. Alright, so I've got my beginning, my middle, and my end for my story. I'm not going to complete the comic strip because that would take too long. I'm going to show you how to lay out the speech bubbles. A lot of times I already have a sketch made for what's going to go into my comics, a general idea of what's going to happen. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and make my speech bubble. And I like to make my speech bubbles kind of organic, so I'm going to kind of make it very large. And then I'm going to go ahead and lay my guidelines out inside. If you know how much you need to say, it makes it much easier. I'll go ahead and put the guidelines in. Sometimes you want to write what you're going to write and then add the speech bubble around it. It depends on, again, if the words are more important than the images. In a graphic novel, or a comic strip, usually that's not the case. The images are showing much more than the words are. But let's get set up. All right, beside me. There we go, part 1. Today we are learning how to use guidelines in speech bubbles. These skills help our comics to be more easily readable. Now, what happens next? Oh, well, I could do this anyway. But the important thing is what needs to be said. And that is that we need to use a ruler, a sharp pencil, and we need to have a plan. So these aren't speech bubbles as much as they are narration bubbles. They're usually a different size or shape. So my speech bubble has a little arrow that points down to the speaker. Narration bubbles tend to have a square look and are usually a different color than the background. Whoops, better circle my number so I have continuity. That means that I have a similar layout so that my entire design has unity. We want to write neatly. I always imagine when I'm doing a comic strip that I can zoom in and zoom out as needed. Isn't it? If your words get jammed up, even sometimes when you have guidelines, that happens, you can just erase it and try again. I'm pressing a little extra hard, but you should be drawing very lightly. If I don't press hard, you won't be able to see it on my video. You can set up your panels. You know how to use your guidelines inside your speech bubbles. And you can add narration boxes along with your images in your comic strip. I'll keep working on mine, while you get to work on yours.